a touchdown for Fred Hover. Hover going to dump it over the middle, has the 5-yard touchdown pass into the hands of Markel Henderson. Second down and 10 for the Pirates. From the Hardin-Simmons 43, what a right-handed grab on that play. Stretching his arm out was Castilleja. Back handoff to the man in motion is Brandenburg. Brandenburg dives for the pylon, and he gets the call. Touchdown, Brandenburg, 4-yard sweep. Over pass, touchdown, 8 yards. Landry Bray.
Well, in this game will be a good building, teaching tool going forward.
Well, certainly, we're going to show them the things that we didn't do. I mean, we did a lot of good things, and we're going to show them that too, but they'll be able to see the things that kept us from being able to upset a top 10 team. Top 10 team.
Once again, welcome back to SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Oss. Let's give it up for the Pirates on a good effort against the number 9 team. Talking about the Hardin-Simmons Cowboys last week on a Saturday. They, of course, as we started the show moments ago, lost at home this past Saturday, 49-35 versus Hardin-Simmons. As we looked at the highlights just then, we'll talk about this game. Southwestern now coached 4-4 overall, 3-4 in ASC play. The Pirates had 410 yards of total offense by Southwestern. For Hardin-Simmons, their running back coming off of his SCA or ASC Player of the Week title. The running back Bryson Hammonds rushed for 203 yards on 27 carries for the Cowboys. Quarterback Fred Hover for Southwestern, 24 of 39, 3 touchdowns, 285 yards. Landry Bray, 7 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown. For Hardin-Simmons, the quarterback Ty Hooper, 19 of 28, 384, 5 touchdowns through the air. Coach, as we talk a game versus a top 10 team this past Saturday, of course, ranked number 9, actually, Hardin-Simmons showed their ability to execute, but Southwestern was able to maintain some of their own rhythm, Coach. Ty Hooper at quarterback, simply unstoppable as we talk about him in that game. But can you describe the toughness playing against this number 9 ranked Hardin-Simmons team?
Well, they're very good. Not very many weaknesses. They've scored over 42 points on every team they've played except for Mary Hardin-Baylor, so they're definitely a team that that's very good in a lot of different areas, and we saw how difficult it can be, and we thought it would maybe be strength versus strength with our ability against a lot of teams to stop the run and their ability against everyone to run the football, and ended up being a pretty tough matchup for us. We weren't able to do that. The running back, as you said, went over 200 yards. We knew they were going to get some things in the passing game. At times we had 3 true freshmen out in the secondary, and people that follow us know that that's the place that we're building. And those guys are working really hard, and they're doing a good job for as young as they are, but that was going to be a tough matchup with the athletes they can throw at us. We were hoping to do a little bit better in the run game than we did. So they show us places we need to work on. We're a small team, especially up front on our defensive line, and some weeks we can get away with that being quick. This was a game where we couldn't quite get away with that, and it made it a tough day for our defense.
Well, Coach, we talked about their quarterback, of course, but then their running back, Bryson Ham, is over 200 yards. This is one of the first times this season that Southwestern really wasn't able to stop a big run game. Your thoughts on that running game by Hardin-Simmons?
They're very good, and they're very dynamic in what they do. They have really good running backs. The defending conference offensive player of the year was injured and couldn't play, so this other guy they just threw in the next guy that could be the conference player of the year at running back. But their offensive line is so good and they're so athletic. And as I mentioned, some teams were able to at our fairly diminutive size on our defensive line hang in there. But these guys, with their athleticism and their size, they're maybe the best offensive line that we're going to see. They're certainly one of the best offensive lines in the country, and they gave us all we could handle. We couldn't get a pass rush. We couldn't get tackles for loss like we normally do. So they're kind of setting a bar for our defense to shoot for. A lot of teams, we've had teams where we've had negative rushing yards. So to give up a 200-yard rusher, that's a big departure. But they're a very good football team, and a lot of credit to what they were able to do against us.
Well, Coach, there were several big plays for Hardin-Simmons. You guys tried to stop those big plays. There was quite a few of them, though, for this very tough Hardin-Simmons offense. Where were some of the struggles that you noticed from the coaching standpoint on the defense for Southwestern?
They hit us in a lot of areas. We already talked about their 200-yard rusher. You don't get 200 yards without some big plays. But they hit some big pass plays. They just did a really good job. They've got Reese Childress, who's been probably a 4-time all-conference receiver for them, scored twice. They just had more weapons, I think, than we have at this point. And young secondary, I mentioned before, at times 3 freshmen out there, and ask them to be in the run game, man cover in the pass game. Another tough learning lesson. The great thing for these guys are, in 4 years, they'll have seen everything, and they'll have gone against it. They'll have had a chance to grow and develop themselves, and they'll be in good shape. So you try to find some of those moral victories when you give up 49 points and almost 600 yards, and that is that we don't have a single senior out there. Corey Vega, our only senior, didn't get to play. So in theory, all these guys will be back next year, and they'll all be so much better next year. And so it's kind of what you have to look at in a game like this.
Coach, just some other areas that you can think of where Southwestern struggled a bit. Penalties, still committing some penalties. Not as many as Hardin-Simmons, though, man. They had over 150 yards in penalties. But maybe some other areas in this game where Southwestern, you thought maybe they could have stepped up just a little bit.
Well, we did commit a lot of penalties. They committed more. But we're starting, I think, turn the corner. We didn't have any turnovers, and they had one. We had a lot of penalties. They had a ton of penalties, so I'm not going to say we did great there. But those are things you have to do when you want to compete with a team like this. Is you can't lose those areas. You can't lose penalties. You can't lose turnovers. What we did was our penalties actually were at a pretty poor time for us. For example, we got it to a 2-score game in the third quarter, and our offense started with a drive with a false start. Then we ended up 1st and 15. And we ended up 4th and 1. So we gained 14 plays on our 3 yards. But with that 1st and 15, we need to gain 15. That's tough to do. To say you have to get 15 yards to get a drive started against Hardin-Simmons is going to be a tough chore.
Well, Coach, enough about the negative things. I like to move it a little more positive. And overall, Southwestern, you talk about a team ranked number 9. From us in the booth, we felt like Southwestern put up a great fight. On the positive end, on the offense, Fred Hover, 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards through the air.
Exactly. Well, let me interrupt you. The stats got revised and cleaned up, and he was over 300 yards.
Yeah, over 300 on the air. Yeah. So talking about him and 3 touchdowns, and talking about that play, were you impressed with the play, at least in the passing game for Southwestern?
Our guys did a nice job, and we got a lot of contributions. Our play action passes, and then we build it up through the year. We show the looks that we're going to run out of, and we show how our runs and our passes look really similar. And this was a week where we needed to be able to execute that. We needed to have that balance because they were a tough team to run against. We weren't going to hit our average. Just like we did actually hold them under their rushing average, believe it or not. They held us under ours, so it was important that we could get some big pass plays. David Brandenburg's going to be on tonight. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. He scored on the first drive, which was a really key play for us. And it was good that we were able to be balanced. It wasn't a team that we were going to be able to hold the ball on and dominate the clock and just grind the game out like we can do against some teams. Like we played that windy game against Bellhaven where we could just kind of hold them at arm's length the whole game and and not let the wind really worry us. This is a game where we had to throw everything out, and play them late in the season I think helped us because they'd seen us run a lot of those formations, and they were really definitely loading up on our run game. We were able to have some good success in play action. Fred did a nice job. He probably could have played even a little bit better, but I'm his quarterback coach, and I always probably tell him that. But he did a nice job throwing for over 300. He ran for about 80 also, so he had about 400 yards of total offense. And he continues to be a guy that can really make things happen for us.
Well, as we continue to talk to head coach Joe Austin, Southwestern University, here on the SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. You mentioned David Brandenburg. We'll talk to him here in a little bit, but he had an impressive game. You talked about those 2 touchdowns, 89 yards through the air, his biggest receiving game of the season from what we saw on the stat line. Talk about maybe some other positive areas for Southwestern in this one, because there was a few more areas that they did really well at versus Hardin-Simmons.
Well, David's a guy that we like to use in a lot of areas. For example, he was our leading rusher, one of our top rushers in our Denison game, for example. We used him as a wing back in our pitch game. So he's a versatile player for us. He's also been a punt returner, been a kick returner. So we're happy to get David going. We had a really good running back by committee. We lost Kalen Heim a little while ago, so we've had to use a bunch of guys. So Markel Henderson is doing a very good job. He had a couple good catches for us, including the touchdown catch. He actually caught another long touchdown that got called back by penalty. Devin Shaw came in and has done some really nice things. We talked to him. He was on the show about what a great blocker he can be, but he's done good things catching the ball as well. In fact, he leads our team in yards per reception. When we get him the ball, he's a big play guy in our play action passing game. And we saw in the highlight Austin Castilleja, a freshman coming in, and he plays a variety of positions like David. He can be a wing or a slot receiver. He can play a little bit in the backfield. So those guys are all kind of stepping up and playing well by committee. We're continuing to play an 8, 9, 10 offensive linemen, and they're all continuing to grow and learn and develop. And that was good to see also.
And, Coach, still overall, we'll talk about it in the final segment as we talk more about this game coming up. But a young team by Southwestern. And so a lot of things learned this season and some things that will be able to carry over next season. Can you mention a little bit just about the young part of the Southwestern Pirates team?
Well, certainly. I touched on the fact that there were no seniors on defense that played in the entire game. And I'm a guy that has always believed in moral victory. So I like the fact that we can throw hopefully that same team out there next year and do even better. And when we looked at this game, each of the last 2 years, they've been a top 10 team when we played them, and we've been 14 points off. So we need to get 14 points better. And I think by being a year older on defense and having everyone back, hopefully that's a place that we can get 14 points better. We're also not losing a lot on offense. We're losing some guys, which we'll talk about as the season wraps up. But we're going to have a lot of guys back on offense also. So you give us time. We need to continue to grow and develop. But a lot of teams are a lot further off of Hardin-Simmons than 14 points, and we've shown that each of the last 2 years. 2 different styles of games. This one was more wide open and high scoring than last year. But that's what we know what we're up against. It's tough to measure yourself against Mary Hardin Baylor. Don't forget, Mary Hardin Baylor shut these guys out. So when you look at Hardin-Simmons, they're a Division III team. Now, they're a very good elite Division III team, but they've got a lot of Division III players. Now, they do have some transfers, some scholarship players, but they're just a really good Division III team, a good measuring stick for us. We're 14 points away.
Coach, just a final couple of questions here. What did you tell the team after the game?
Not a lot. It was a game where I wanted to watch the film and talk to him a little bit more on Sunday. It was an emotional game. Guys poured a lot into it. I think our defensive guys expected to perform better than they did. I expected us. I mentioned I thought maybe it was going to be a good matchup. Ended up being a tough matchup for us. So there wasn't a whole lot to say. I mean, everybody was there. They went through it. They saw it. So we talked a little bit more on Sunday. And even then, there wasn't a whole lot of team things to talk about. And that our defensive coaches wanted to get right down into the film, and they wanted to look at things they needed to improve upon, and the same thing with our offensive coaches. So I guess maybe it's kind of a weird week in that there wasn't a whole lot of debrief. It's kind of one of those things where the film is the debrief, and here's how we are. Just kind of reiterated the fact that what I just told everyone is we're 14 points away. We got to figure out how we're going to close that 14 points. Actually, we got to probably get 15 points, right? We want to not only catch them but pass them. And so here are the things that we're going to do moving forward to try to close that gap.
Hey, Coach, something positive, of course, it was homecoming for Southwestern. Man, when I got there, I took a picture, or actually a video on Facebook. I was so impressed with the number of people that came out. Can we give a round of applause for those who came out and supported the Pirates? That parking lot out there at Birkelbach completely full on a homecoming night. Before we break away into our second segment, Coach, just give you a final moment. Any final thoughts on that game?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned our crowd, a really great crowd. A lot of our sponsors were out, and I want to thank them for being there. The Featherstone agencies were out there. Chick-fil-A, I'm sure I'm missing some folks, but just in my quick flyby, out having some giveaways and entertaining our fans. And homecoming is a fun deal, and we're disappointed that we didn't perform as well as maybe we could have or should have. But it's certainly, I hope people are enjoying having football back at homecoming. It's been 6 decades since between homecoming football games.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we appreciate you. As always, I always say this, your accessibility has been awesome this year. Makes our job a lot easier here at SHN. So thank you, and thank you for what you do for the community, not only at Georgetown, but the kids at Southwestern. An excellent job. Looking forward to these final 2 games. We'll talk more about that in the 4th segment. But ladies and gentlemen, let's give one more round of applause for Southwestern head football coach Joe Austin. We'll move on to our 2nd segment where we'll talk to some of our special guests. Stay with us, friends. SU Football Weekly with head coach Joe Austin continues in a few moments right here on SHN Sports. Stay with us, friends. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. I'm Rob Hipp. Thanks for joining us here tonight from the Sheraton in Georgetown, Texas. We're now here with our special guest, the junior defensive linebacker, number 50, Chris Crawford. Can we give it up for Chris? Thank you for being here tonight, young man.
Thank you.
I told Chris a while ago that we were on a major network right now, so just to get him ready for it. And so we're excited that you're here, Chris. Appreciate you being here. Before we dig into it, talking a little bit about Chris here on the SCAC Academic Honor Roll in 2016, the Director of Athletics, Academic Excellence Award in 16, also on the Dean's List back in 16, majoring in pre-engineering. Let's give a round of applause for that, man. So, a lot of great things going on at Southwestern, and as I always say, you students are really the driving force behind of so many great things going on at the university. Chris, as we dig into things here, just to get to know you a little bit, can you talk about growing up in the Houston area and your high school career at Houston Christian, man?
So, growing up in Houston, you get to meet like a wide diverse set of people, and it's a big area. And so with that, and I went to Houston Christian, which is nowhere near where I live. It's about 30 minutes from my house. So I drove into school every day and went there, and it was just a decision I made coming out of middle school, and my parents thought it was a good idea. So.
Awesome, man. Well, can you talk a little bit? We know you play football, of course, or you wouldn't be sitting up here talking to us tonight. But can you talk a little bit about some of your hobbies outside of football?
I mean, I guess, but like outside of football and school, I do a lot of like boating and fishing and stuff. I like being around the ocean. So.
Awesome. Did you grow up in any of those areas, fishing and hunting growing up any?
Yes, sir. Mostly just fishing and stuff. We got a boat down in Freeport, so I spent a lot of summers down there.
Have you had any fishing here in the Georgetown area yet, man?
It's a lot of bow fishing, mostly on the San Gabriel.
Awesome. All right. Well, the San Gabriel's good. I grew up on the San Gabriel catching cat, man, and a good place to go fishing, so that's awesome, and glad you're enjoying a lot of the recreation we have here in Georgetown. You know, it's one of the top recreation towns in the United States. 40 miles of hike and bike trails, a lot of fishing, so good stuff, man. Well, can you talk a little bit about, as we talk to Chris Crawford here, how did you end up playing football at Southwestern University?
So, you know, as like any like rising senior in high school, I was kind of looking around and just seeing what was out there and just getting a feel for who was out there. And then I started talking with Coach Ross, which is now he's the offensive line coach, and I really started talking with him, and he told me about the program and how it was coming up and that how a lot of good things were starting to be done there. And after talking with Coach Ross, he really sold me on it. And then I got on campus and got to meet Coach Austin and talk to some of the other coaches and Coach Ebo. And that's really just how sold me was our coaching staff and the quality of people they are.
Awesome. Well, you know, 2 games remaining here in the season. You as a junior still got some time, of course, next year. Still some learning moments, but 2 games left here in the season for Southwestern. What's going through your mind right now, Chris?
Just to try to finish up and win the games that we know we should. Just stay real fundamental up front on the defense and just try to not make the small errors and finish strong.
Well, there's been several games this season, Chris, where you guys have excelled really well. I know that there's got to be some highlights that you can think of. What's been maybe your favorite moment so far this season?
My favorite moment, I think, defensively was I think we were playing – it was Sol Ross, and we ran a blitz, and I think 2 of us hit the quarterback. And as we're getting up, everybody was kind of yelling, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I saw Joel run by with the ball on the pick 6, and I just had no idea that happened. That was just real exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. You're talking about when Joel Heideco had that. Nice, man.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
as we continue to talk to Chris Crawford here, linebacker for Southwestern Junior, there's still some areas, as we've talked about, still a young team. You guys are working and improving. Where from you on the field personally do you feel like maybe you can improve?
Probably just I know like assignments is a big part of our defense. It's not like how I know if you like alignment and then just doing your job. So one thing that I think personally that I mean getting off blocks as far as myself, you know. So I mean I'm real assignment based, but there's more than just doing your assignment, doing that extra stuff, getting off blocks, making plays instead of just doing the bare minimum, I think.
Well, last week your defense put up a good fight against a top 10 ranked team in Hardin-Simmons. We've talked about their number 9 ranking. Can you talk a little bit about your teammates on the defense in that game for you last week?
Last week we faced probably, like Coach Austin said, one of the best offensive lines we're going to see this year, and I think that it slowed down our defensive line, but I think it brought out some of our better like linebackers. I know Ben Brockman had a great game, and Hayden Smith played pretty well as well. So I think by them slowing down our defensive line, I think it brought out some of the better aspects of our back end of our defense.
And what's some of the things that you enjoy most being around those other defensive guys? I know you guys get to be like a tight-knit, close family. What is something that you guys really enjoy working together as?
There's just things I like personally about some of the linebackers is the camaraderie. No matter if it's football or if it's who can eat an orange faster or something, someone's always going to say they can do it better or just whatever.
Well, as we continue to talk to Chris Crawford here, correct me if I'm wrong, you played a little bit in the SCAC that first year. So can you talk a little bit about what you've noticed, the difference from the SC? And we've asked this to other players as well, but I always like to hear your perspective, the difference from when you were in the SCAC now on the ASC.
So I played a little bit my freshman year in the SCAC and got to see what kind of competition was there. But the biggest difference that I've noticed is definitely the level of competition. Playing some of those teams that we played freshman year, like Trinity and them, and then now we're playing ETBU and Hardin-Simmons and Mary Hardin-Baylor, and the level of competition is every week is you can be upset every week. I think in the ASC, I think there's that probability that could always happen.
Well, you know, starting out this season, it seemed like every game, you know, anyone could be a weatherman because you could say, well, when Southwestern plays, we know it's going to rain. We finally get 2 games where it's not raining. How has that been, playing through the rain and then finally getting a little bit of sunshine?
It's definitely different. I know a lot of the weeks at practice, I think I've talked to some of the guys back after practice and stuff that I think one day a week we get practice or we get rain and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do for practice, whether it be in the gym or pushing it up, pushing it back. So I think it's just really become part of our season this year is the rain, and so it's something we've really just acclimated to.
So it has been nice, though, with those 2 little sunnier days, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, can you talk a little bit about your influences, some folks who have made an impact on you growing up and got you to where you're at today, Chris?
Probably my biggest influence, I think, as football-wise, would be my defensive coordinator in high school. He was someone that I knew going into high school, and he was like a family friend and a mentor. So just he really helped me grow, just not as a football player, but just as a person in general. So.
Well, you talk about majoring in pre-engineering. You're in a club, an engineering club, right?
I'm in the physics club.
In the physics club. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you guys do in that and how you got involved? Because I think that's pretty awesome, man.
So in the physics club, we usually meet twice a month, and we either have like a speaker come in or someone from some graduate schools or graduate programs come in and talk. But besides that, they usually do 2 projects a semester. They'll do I know last semester they did like a kinetic table, which used some vibrations to make patterns in sand. But besides that, it's kind of just getting to hang out with some of my other classmates that I'm really not as close with and get to know them. I know tomorrow, or I guess Saturday, the physics club's going out and playing paintball against the computer science club, which was going to be like the highlight of the semester because a lot of professors are going out, and I know President Berger will be there.
There you go.
It's a shame to have to miss that one, but it is what it is.
And he'll be out there playing, right?
Yes, sir.
Man, so yeah, I think that's great. You know, there's the reason right there. If there's clubs on campus, join them because you never know what you're going to get to do out there, and you may go paintballing with Dr. Berger. You never know, man. Well, finally, a couple of last questions here as we finish up with the defensive linebacker number 50, Chris Crawford, here on SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. You've talked a little bit about your role in the club and things that you're doing in pre-engineering. Where do you really see yourself after college? What would be the ideal job? Where do you want to be at, man? I know you still got another year or so to think about it, but where would you like to be?
My plan right now after college or after Southwestern is to go to graduate school. I've been looking into a lot of programs that are like dual degree, so I can either get my like undergrad in mechanical engineering and then get my master's in whatever field. So what I'm thinking right now is either marine engineering or naval architecture. That's what I want to do in the long run. Is I want to work on like subsea structures or boats and stuff like that. So
awesome, man. Well, impressive things here. The camera right here to your left. Who do you want to send a shout out to? A little love tonight from Georgetown, Texas, man.
Just give a shout out to my mom and dad. Hi, Mom.
Awesome. Hey, short and sweet to the point. Can we give it up for the defensive linebacker number 50, Chris Crawford? Another outstanding young man. We appreciate you being here tonight. Everybody having a good time tonight? Awesome. We appreciate y'all being here on a beautiful fall night, November the 1st. Chris, been an awesome interview. Good luck and best wishes as you go forward, and looking forward to more things next year. We know that you guys, as juniors especially, just going to continue to get better out there on the field. Friends, stay with us. We'll have another guest. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues on SHN Sports. Welcome back to SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin. Rob Pipp here, now joined by the junior offensive, technically listed as a running back on the roster, number 5, David Brandenburg. Can we give a round of applause for David being here tonight? Thank you, David, for being here.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you as we dig in a little bit. A junior from Spring, Texas, went to Concordia Lutheran High School, the All-ASC honorable mention in 2017. You're majoring in business. And a transfer from the University of Kansas.
Yes, sir.
Before we get to that, David, can you talk a little bit about growing up in Spring and attending Concordia Lutheran High School? You had some pretty impressive acclamations in high school. Talk a little bit about those, man.
Yeah, for sure. So going to high school at Concordia, I grew up a Concordia kid my whole life. My dad was actually a football coach there, so I grew up, on the sidelines being a ball boy, and finally got to, dress out and play for the team. So that was a really cool experience for sure. So
you transferred, and correct me on that if I'm wrong, you transferred from the University of Kansas. How'd you end up in Georgetown, Texas, man?
Yes, sir. So initially out of high school, I was being recruited by Southwestern and other schools in Texas too, but decided at the time that I wanted to, have the big school experience, go to a big school. And I have Midwestern connections. I'm actually originally from South Dakota, have family in South Dakota and Minnesota. So moving back up north a little bit, I just visited Kansas and just loved it, loved the campus, loved everything about it there. So ended up making my decision there. And then midway through my sophomore year, something just didn't feel right exactly. I was doing well in school. I had good friends, and I just knew I was missing something. And I think it was football, because coming here has just kind of brought like a new light to me, and I'm really happy here. So
awesome, man. Well, it's a privilege as all the student athletes to have you here in Georgetown at Southwestern University as we continue to talk to David Brandenburg. You mentioned South Dakota. Where at, man? What town in South Dakota?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota
Sioux
is where I'm
Falls.
from. Yes, sir.
Okay. I used to have my sister moved up to what's north of Sioux Falls? Brookings, where South Dakota
Okay.
State is. So she was up in Brookings, so very familiar with that area. Beautiful country
sure.
too, man, up there
sure.
in that part of the U.S. Well, can you talk a little bit about some of your hobbies outside of football? I know that you got more going on than just football. Talk a little bit about that, David.
For sure. Well, besides school, football is, what I mostly do, football in school. But I love to play other sports too. I love to play basketball and, pretty much whatever it is, play video games or just competing, pretty much everything, pretty competitive guy. So, just hanging out with friends, playing sports, stuff like that.
You guys play any pickup games at Southwestern Hoops?
For sure. In the off-season, though, only. In the off-season.
There you go. Yeah, when Coach Austin maybe started to look over here. Don't mess up in the basketball,
For
man.
sure, never.
Awesome. Well, as we continue to talk to David Brandenburg here, something cool that I was reading, and explain this a little bit. I was reading that you were listed as an Art State champion. Can you talk a little bit about that, man? I thought that was pretty unique. Talk about that, if you don't mind.
So in high school, I entered a few art pieces in the state championships. And if you enter pieces, you get to compete in an on-site event. And the on-site event I competed in was called On-Site Design. And so you basically get like a bucket of just random, garbage basically. And you have like an hour to make something. And there were about 200 kids in the room, and I was one of the first ones to finish. I remember leaving there and just being like, I have no idea what that was. Like, just kind of under pressure type thing. And then my art teacher was reading the placements, and I got first. I won a state championship in art, which was kind of funny. Didn't win one in any sports, and both my older siblings did, so I got to at least, I'm an art state champion, so I got to hold that.
There you go. Let's give it up. Art State champion David Brandenburg here this afternoon.
My claim to fame there.
Well, I think that's pretty cool. I appreciate you talking about that. As I was reading that, I said, man, you gotta tell us about that. Well, you're officially on the roster, at least the one that we had as the last update, as a running back, but I've seen you more kind of in that slot position as a receiver. It's really where you've excelled. Where do you feel most comfortable on the field?
For sure. So in high school, we ran like a really old-fashioned wing tee. Pretty run heavy, I'd say like 15% run over pass. So did mostly running in high school. So initially through recruitment, I was a running back, but then kind of found like my spot in this like kind of slot hybrid running back position. And in our offense, we have like a really dynamic offense. We're run heavy, but we can spread it out too. So I kind of found a spot there in the slot there. So I would say now. More than last year, so I'm more of a receiver than a running back.
Then you feel much more comfortable kind of in that position?
For sure.
Well, in talking about that, on the receiving end last week, I believe your biggest receiving game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 6 receptions, 89 yards was the numbers that we had on the stat sheet, and a touchdown, of course, receiving. You also rushed for a touchdowns. Can you give us your thoughts on a tough matchup versus Hardin Simmons?
Yeah, for sure. Hardin Simmons, much like UMHB in our conference, top 10 team. It's always going to be a tough matchup when you go up against them, especially really talented defense. So to be able to mix it up like we did, throw the ball a lot, I think it really helped our offense out. And yeah, biggest receiving. I think that is my biggest receiving game of the season. So any way I can help out, for sure, help the guys out, help the team out, I'm going to do that for sure.
Well, as only a junior, a lot of room for improvement as well for you as the football career continues. 2 games left here in the season. Some areas that you feel like maybe you can improve on a personal level on the field for your team?
I would say dependability. Just being there every time my number's called on, knowing that the coaching staff can trust me, the other guys can trust me, that when my number's called that I'm going to make a play. Something along those lines. Route running obviously is something you can always improve upon. Blocking, there's always perimeter blocking is a huge aspect for us, a huge aspect. So there's always room for improvement there.
Well, a road game, of course, Saturday. We'll head up to Brownwood, and then one final game here in Georgetown to close out the season versus Texas Lutheran. Just as I asked earlier as we talked to Chris, what's going through your mind right now, man?
You mentioned Texas Lutheran. It's kind of funny. Both my parents went to TLU, and my dad was a football player there. And I have a bunch of other family members who went to TLU, so they're always a little bit conflicted, I think, when that game rolls around. They wear yellow and black, I'll say that much, but yeah, it's always a fun game going to TLU or playing TLU here, especially with them in the stands.
So a lot of your family, do they hide from the other fans that they normally may sit with, kind of sit to their side?
Yeah, I think they might do that for sure. Yeah.
Well, also, as we continue to talk to David Brandenburg here, talk a little bit about practices this week. With those 2 games left, anything changing up in practice? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's one of those things at the end of the season where, the season's starting to come to an end, and you really are getting close to your teammates, and practices become just a little bit more special. I'd say at the beginning of the season, fall camp, it's more like, a grind to get through. But I think we're at the point now where it's like, they're more special. They're coming to an end, so we're like appreciating each other more, appreciating, the camaraderie and stuff like that a little bit more. So as the season goes on, obviously practices get a lot more fun, and we're looking forward to Saturday for sure.
Well, David, you just mentioned the camaraderie. Your thoughts on the relationship that you have with the rest of your offensive players. You guys have a lot of just really awesome offensive weapons as well as on the defense, but expand a little bit more on the relationship and just that family fellowship that you guys have on the offensive end.
For sure. So last year coming in, brand new, not knowing anybody, I was kind of nervous at first, obviously, a whole new perspective, a whole new friend group I was going to have to make, and they just welcomed me in with, wide open arms. So really gotten really close to a lot of the guys, especially on the offense, and we just work well together. We have fun together, and it's always a good time for sure.
Talk a little bit about your influences. Who's helped you to get where you're at today? Some folks that you want to give thanks to for that.
I would say firstly my parents. Everything they do for me, they sacrifice a lot for me, work hard for me, and I'm extremely appreciative for that. Football-wise, I would say probably coaches from high school, Coach Lindquist, Coach Vasquez, guys like that who are more than just coaches to me. They taught me to be, a good Christian man, and I'm extremely appreciative for them.
And, being in college, do you ever talk to those coaches from the high school days? Is there any communication, especially some of the smaller towns that a lot of you guys grew up in? Spring, not too small, but,
right.
Is there still some communication sometimes with some of those guys?
Yeah, for sure. Coach Vasquez he's an offensive coordinator at the high school that I went to, and we still communicate often. When I was considering transferring, actually, he played a big role in, encouraging me. I remember him saying something along the lines of just, following my dreams, doing what I want to do, and that was extremely helpful for me.
Awesome. Well, as you're majoring in business, where do you really want to see yourself? You've still got, just like Chris, you've got another year on the way. Chris got a lot more too, but where do you really see yourself? Where do you want to be after college, man?
I have a little bit shorter timeline than Chris because this is my 4th year of school, but with the transferring, I'll be able to come back another semester and play. But to be honest, a bit of a question mark. I could see myself going somewhere in football, either coaching or working, director of football operations type stuff. I could find myself being interested in that, but just kind of keep playing the field, I guess, see what comes, see what goes, and, play it how it comes.
Awesome, man. Well, finally, camera here, Mickey back there behind it. Who you want to give a shout-out to, a little love from Georgetown, Texas tonight, David?
Definitely my family, my mom, my dad, Johnny, Sarah, Allie, Jonathan, and Emily. Hi, guys. Love you all. All my friends back home, all my friends up at KU. Love you guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's give it up one more time. David Brandenburg on offense for Southwest. Another very well outspoken young man. We appreciate you, David. Good luck. And, just from us on the broadcasting end, it's exciting. Every time you get on the field and that ball heads towards you, I said, man, I hope something great happens. And, 50% of the time we see something amazing happen. So keep up what you're doing on the field. Can't wait for the rest of the games this season. Also already looking ahead to next season as well. So Absolutely. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. We'll take another break. Stay with us, friends, as we move on to our SU Sports recap. We'll be right back. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues here on SHN Sports. Well, as we go back and look at a few things from this past week at Southwestern University here on our third segment of the SU Sports Recap, the sophomore Andrew Hernandez named the SCAC Offensive Player of the Week in men's soccer after a game-winning overtime goal versus the University of Dallas. The Pirates have snagged the third-place spot in the 2018 SCAC men's soccer tournament that will be hosted at SU's Varsity Field. Coming up tomorrow through November the 4th, they will rematch against Austin College on Friday, November the 2nd at 1:30. Can we give a round of applause for Andrew? Congratulations. Great work, Andrew, that you're doing there on the soccer team. For men's soccer, now we switch and talk a little bit about women's soccer. Junior Mallory Harkins from Austin, Texas, selected as the SCAC Women's Soccer Defensive Player of the Week for matches played October 22nd to October 28th. She had a game-winning assist against the University of Dallas. The women's soccer team earned a bye in the first round of the SCAC Women's Soccer Championship, and they will face the winner of Texas Lutheran versus University of Dallas on Saturday at Trinity. Can we give a round of applause for Mallory? Man, there's a lot of SU players making the rounds this week. Alyssa Dooley in volleyball averaged just under 4 kills per set, totaling 41 kills with a .326 hitting percentage in last week's matches, earning her the SCAC Offensive Player of the Week honors. The Pirates head to Dallas for Game 1 of the SCAC Volleyball Championship this Friday. Can we keep clapping? Another honor in the SCAC. Congratulations to the fine work that all of the student athletes are doing. And last but not least on our list here, talking about the SU Sports Recap, in swimming, sophomore Keith Gill paced the Pirates by placing a hand in 40 points, winning both of his individual events, serving as the anchor leg in the men's winning 200 medley relay and earning him SCAC Swimmer of the Week honors. One more round of applause. That's 4 different sports, 4 different SCAC honors. Congratulations to all of the student athletes at Southwestern University that are doing some amazing things for Southwestern. Well, of course, as I always at this point of the presentation, talking about the sponsors. Things couldn't happen here at Southwestern University without you. We want to thank our sponsors, platinum-level sponsors, Minuteman Press, Waterboy Graphics, Ty Gibson, Blake Nicholson. We appreciate you. Mighty Fine Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Roger Chappell, Berkshire Hathaway. Roger gets the round again every week. I told you, if you come, we got 2 more coaches shows after this one. So you've got 2 more opportunities to get over here, and we'll give you a special shout-out. First Texas Bank, Ricky Poe with Georgetown Jewelry, HEB, Mama Foo's Asian House, Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, and the Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. Thank you, Sheraton. We appreciate y'all, the fine work that they do. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you, guys. Gold sponsors CJ Catering, Double Dave's Pizza, Primerica Financial Solutions, R Bank, Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union, Slotsky's Austin Eatery, South Star Bank, St. David's Georgetown Hospital, Texel Credit Union, and Turnip Seed Real Estate Group. The silver sponsors this season, Antioch Georgetown, Chick-fil-A, Georgetown Commercial Properties, the Georgetown Shirt Companies, and our bronze sponsors, Be Creative, Boomtown Escapes, thank you, Val Nicholson, Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, the City of Georgetown, Don Hewlett Chevrolet, Eagles Wings Home Services, Gary Brown, CPA, Georgetown Title, Hillstone at Wolf Ranch Apartments, John F. Lewis, CPA, State Farm, Featherstone Agencies, and Upstream Investment Partners. Thank you so much to all of the sponsors that make exciting things happen here at Southwestern University. Thank you so much. We'll take another quick break as we move into our 4th segment. SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin continues in just a few moments. Stay with us, friends. Well, welcome back to SU Football Weekly with Coach Joe Austin as we welcome Coach Austin back up here with us alongside Galen Welnicki, my color analyst here on SHN Sports. I was told Coach, I guess my medication's wearing off. I said, where's the other headset? He goes, you've got it on, man. Hand me it. So, again, we appreciate you being here tonight. Southwestern travels to Brownwood to face the Howard Payne Yellow Jackets. The Saturday kickoff scheduled for 4 p.m. I wanted to make sure of that because the original time said 2 p.m., and that was incorrect. So it is a 4 p.m. kickoff in Brownwood. So make sure that you keep an eye on that.
It's a moving target because now I was told today halftime's 25 minutes too. So times keep changing with this game. So I don't know.
So just keep up with
It's going to be when it's going to be. So just leave your YouTube open, I guess.
There
the
you
game's
go.
going to start at some point.
Well, last season the Pirates took the sting out of the Yellow Jackets, defeating them 70-6 here in Georgetown. Howard Payne's only win last year was a conference game versus Belhaven, where they won on the road 45-37. They are currently on a 6-game skid, a 1-7 overall record. Their only victory was the second game of this season, a 37-31 double overtime victory versus McMurray in Brownwood. Coach, this is a team, though, despite their record, and I always say this because we've seen things happen, and we don't want to be on that opposite end. We want to be on the winning end. But this is a team that is very hungry for a win. They would love to come in and put a zap on Southwestern on their home field.
They're better. I told the guys Sunday I'm not going to tell you that we're playing Hardin-Simmons again because you can't stretch it that far. Guys only buy so much for coachisms. But they lost some really close games. Their game to Belhaven, they lost by 1 point. And when you watch the film, they had a 2-point conversion play where it looked like they converted. There's no replay, obviously, in Division III, so they didn't get it. But they lost that game by a point. Then they lost to Saul Ross by 1 point. And they had a chance to kick an extra point with a minute left. And on their touchdown, they committed an excessive celebration penalty, which made the extra point 35 yards, and they missed the 35-yard extra point. So they could be 3-5 and feeling a little bit better. It doesn't, when you're going to go play them, you kind of like when they're 1-6, I guess. But they're better, and so we're expecting them to be better in all phases than they were last year.
What are some areas Southwestern has to watch out for, and also maybe some players in this game for the Pirates to keep an eye on?
We've got to play well. I'm not trying to knock their players because they're better. They don't have they don't have an ASC Player of the Year candidate like so many teams may have on offense or defense. We really need to go and play well because they are dangerous in the fact that they are better and they've hung around with teams. I'm sure they'll have some excitement from their homecoming. But I think this week is a lot about making sure we can go play well and get off to a good start. It's supposed to have about 20-degree sustained winds, so some 30-mile-an-hour gusts. We'll see how that plays into it. That'll be a factor. We just need to go and play well.
Coach, as I've asked some of the players here tonight, how have practices from the coaching perspective been this week?
That was okay. Not quite as much energy as last week, but they're not always – as a coach, you always expect them to be the same, but you're realistic that they're not going to be. There was a lot of excitement last week. We had our location change, which I think fed into our guys being excited to practice. It wasn't bad, but it's a week where there's not quite the same buzz as homecoming week and playing a top 10 team. I wouldn't say that puts us in danger to be upset, but it just you asked the question, so it was okay. It wasn't our strongest week, but I think we've gotten our work done. I think we've gotten our preparation in.
Galen?
Getting off of the subject of Howard Payne a little bit, what are going to be your recruiting priorities in the off season? Where are you going to look? Is it going to be a balanced thing?
We're going to look in Texas. We're recruiting all positions. We're a team that doesn't have a ton of depth, and then we're trying to become a team that has more competition even within the team. We need to have seniors and juniors and sophomores and freshmen lined up, and we're in a position now where a lot of freshmen and sophomores are starting, and they're the oldest guys. So we're trying to continue to build and build our roster. We're not going to become a huge team, but we're definitely going to try to find the best players that we can attract from an academic standpoint at all of our positions.
Right. What would be an ideal, within the parameters of the school and everything, what would be your ideal squad size to work with? If you could put a number out there and how many kids you'd like to have.
I think 120 is good for us. It'll fit in with what the athletic department philosophies are and what the school's philosophies are, but also in our ability to provide the support and services for our players, because our program is built on helping them become successful young men that can go out and be successful. So they need some structure and they need some accountability. And if we're a team with 220 people, we either have to double our coaching size, or we wouldn't be able to service that many student athletes. And we don't babysit them by any means, but we know kind of how they're doing, and we track their progress, and they're accountable throughout the year for how they're progressing.
On the D3 level, do you see any drastic rule changes coming up for the next year? I know people have probably talked a little bit about that.
The only thing I've heard about is perhaps changing the social media rules in recruiting to make our level, our division, equal with what Division I and Division II are already doing. And I'd be okay with that because they're kind of confusing for players, they're confusing for us. There's so many things that are the same Division I, II, III. But there's a lot of things that are different in each division. And so I think the more it can be uniform, at least from my perspective, I think that it just makes it easier for all coaches. It makes it easier for all recruits to understand kind of what the playing field is. So that'd be okay with me if they made it standard.
That's good.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you. You know, just besides the game, of course, that's why we're going. We're excited. I won't say the name, but there's a very good cafe there in Brownwood. We always like to stop there and eat, so I'm excited about the food too, Coach, so we can't wait for that. Coach, any closing remarks before we sign off here tonight?
No, it was nice to recap, the effort that we gave at Hardin-Simmons. And, we talked about some of the shortcomings of defense, but I'm glad Chris brought up that a lot of guys did play pretty well. A lot of guys in his linebacker core. Ben Brockman had a good game, and Aaron Robinson made a lot of tackles. He's still sore from all the physical contact that he had. So a lot of guys did do some good things, and so it's okay that we talked about our shortcomings, but I'm glad Chris was able to talk about a lot of the good things the defense did, because the offense kind of had the better of the day statistically. But I think we'll bounce back this weekend. It's going to be another game where our defense will match up well. The quickness of our defensive line will show through, where last week is a little bit tougher. And if our linebackers keep playing well, that'll be good. And our defensive secondary, I think, are going to have a good matchup also.
Well, we're excited about the game here coming up in Brownwood on Saturday. It's not that far of a drive, friends, so if you can get out there, please drive. Make that short drive to Brownwood, Texas to support the Southwestern Pirates. Going to be a fun one. We're excited to bring it. As always, Coach, we appreciate you, all the staff here at Southwestern. Can we give everyone that's associated with Southwestern a round of applause? Thank you, guys, so much. Miss Galeta, thank you. Glenn back there hanging out with Jim Wilson. We appreciate you guys as well, and all the folks that just make everything possible at Southwestern University. Wanted to remind you that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching it right now, simply click on the subscribe button. For those of you that are hearing this later, go to youtube.com/SHN Sports and the number 1. That's youtube.com/SHN Sports number 1. And please subscribe to that. We would appreciate that. As always, we appreciate the Sheraton. Can we give one more round of applause for the Sheraton? Thank you all for hosting us. We sincerely appreciate it. And as I end every broadcast, friends, reminding you that we're not strong enough alone to make it our own. We need each other. Provide a word of encouragement. Lend a hand of support. Somebody out there tonight needs you. Until then, we will see you on Saturday. Go Pirates! We will see you Saturday. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Mom.